I took the job because my sister needed the surgery and insurance wouldn't cover experimental treatments. The posting had been specific. Night security, isolated location, room and board included, pay well above market rate. No experience required, but must be able to follow instructions precisely. The monastery sat on a peninsula jutting into Lake Superior, accessible only by a single road that wound 3 miles through white pine and birch. I arrived on a Tuesday in late September when the afternoon light turned everything copper, and the first cold edge of autumn made the water look black. The stone buildings formed a rough square around a central courtyard, with the chapel dominating the north side and what looked like dormitories along the east and west. The south side, where I parked, held administrative offices and a modern addition that didn't quite match the 19th century architecture. Brother Thomas met me at the south entrance. He was perhaps 60, with steel-gray hair cut short and the kind of weathered hands that came from decades of manual work. He didn't shake hands or introduce himself with any preamble. "You're the new night guard," he said. "Follow me." He led me through a corridor that smelled of floor wax and old wood, past a kitchen where someone was preparing what looked like an early dinner, and down a flight of stairs to the basement level. My quarters turned out to be a converted storage room. Single bed, desk, lamp, small refrigerator, microwave, private bathroom. A window set high in the wall looked out at ground level toward the lake. "You work from 9 at night until 6 in the morning," Brother Thomas said. "5 nights a week, Wednesday through Sunday. Mondays and Tuesdays are your days off, but you'll need to stay on the grounds. There's a path along the cliffs where you can walk during daylight hours. Don't go into the woods." I set my duffel bag on the bed. "What exactly am I securing?" "The monastery. The brothers sleep during your shift. Most of them are elderly. We need someone to ensure things remain orderly." "Orderly how?" He pulled a folded document from his pocket and set it on the desk. "These are your procedures. Read them carefully. The abbot will brief you tonight at 8:45. Be in the courtyard. Don't be late." "What about patrols, equipment, keys?" "Keys are in the desk drawer. Equipment is in the security office on the first floor. West corridor, room 106. Everything else is in the procedures." He left without further explanation. I unpacked, which took about 10 minutes, then sat at the desk and unfolded the document. It was typed on heavy paper, single-spaced, no header or footer. The title read simply, "Night Security Procedures, St. Perpetua's Monastery." What followed was not what I'd expected. 1. Begin your shift at exactly 9 o'clock post-meridium by checking in at the security office. Verify that all equipment is present. 2 flashlights, 1 radio, 1 set of master keys, 7 keys total, 1 first aid kit, 1 logbook, 1 watch. Wind it. Count the items aloud. 2. Conduct your first patrol starting at 9:15 post-meridium. Walk the perimeter of the courtyard clockwise. Do not enter any buildings during this patrol. Count your steps. The full circuit is 347 steps at normal pace. If you count a different number, stop where you are and radio Brother Thomas on channel 3. Wait for instructions. 3. At 9:45 post-meridium, check all exterior doors. There are 11 total, 3 on the chapel, 2 on the east dormitory, 2 on the west dormitory, 2 on the administrative building, 1 on the maintenance shed, 1 on the storage building. Each door should be locked. Do not unlock them. Do not try the handles more than once. 4. The chapel's central door will sometimes be unlocked. If you find it unlocked before midnight, leave it unlocked. If you find it unlocked after midnight, lock it using the brass key and do not open it again until 6 in the morning. 5. Between 10:30 and 11 post-meridium, you will hear footsteps in the east dormitory's second-floor corridor. These footsteps will walk from the north end to the south end. Pause for approximately 30 seconds, then return. Do not investigate. Do not acknowledge these footsteps in any way. Continue your patrol or remain in the security office. 6. Do not enter the chapel between midnight and 3 in the morning unless specifically instructed to do so by Brother Thomas via radio. If you hear singing from the chapel during these hours, it is not unusual. Do not investigate. 7. The West Dormitory's ground floor bathroom, second door on the left from the south entrance, must be checked at exactly 1 in the morning and again at 4 in the morning. Open the door, count to 5, close the door. Do not enter the bathroom, do not look in the mirror. 8. If you see lights in any building where lights should not be, note the location and time in the logbook. Do not attempt to turn the lights off. At 6 in the morning, report these instances to Brother Thomas. 9. The maintenance shed's door will occasionally be found ajar. If this occurs, approach no closer than 10 yards. Use the radio to contact Brother Thomas on Channel 3. Say only, "Shed protocol." Wait for acknowledgement. Do not approach the shed until the next scheduled patrol. 10. Between 2 and 3 in the morning, you may see a figure in a gray robe walking along the north wall of the courtyard. This figure will walk slowly, with head bowed, hands clasped. Do not speak to this figure. Do not follow this figure. Do not shine your light on this figure. Continue your patrol as normal. 11. At 3:30 in the morning, return to the security office and complete an inventory check. Count all equipment items again. The count must match the original count from 9 o'clock post-meridium. If any items are missing, check your pockets in the immediate area. If you cannot locate the missing items within 5 minutes, lock yourself in the security office and remain there until 6 in the morning. Use the radio only if absolutely necessary. 12. The path along the cliffs is off limits during your shift. If you see anyone on the cliff path between 9 post-meridium and 6 ante-meridium, do not approach them. Radio Brother Thomas immediately. 13. At 4:45 in the morning, begin your final patrol. This patrol follows the same route as the 9:15 post-meridium patrol but is conducted counterclockwise. Count your steps. The total should again be 347. If the number differs, note the discrepancy in the logbook, but do not radio Brother Thomas. 14. End your shift at 6 in the morning. Return all equipment to the security office. Complete the logbook entry with the date, your signature, and the word "uneventful," or a brief description of any irregularities. Do not use more than 1 sentence for irregularities. I read the list 3 times. Some of it made a kind of sense. Checking doors, noting unusual lights, doing regular patrols. But the specifics were strange. Counting steps to ensure a patrol route hadn't changed distance. Not entering a bathroom, not looking in a mirror. Ignoring a figure in a gray robe. I checked my watch. 7:30. I had an hour before meeting the abbot. The desk drawer held a key ring with 7 keys, each tagged with a small label. Master, chapel, office, storage, shed, dormitory E, dormitory W. I pocketed the ring, climbed the stairs, and found the west corridor. Room 106 was unlocked. The security office was barely larger than a closet. A metal desk, a folding chair, a wall-mounted radio unit, a cork board with a campus map pinned to it. On the desk, 2 heavy-duty flashlights, a first aid kit in a red nylon case, a leather-bound logbook, and a watch with a silver case and a winding crown. The radio had a handset and a row of channel selectors numbered 1 through 8. I wound the watch, set it to match my phone's time, and slipped it into my pocket alongside my own watch. The logbook's most recent entry was dated 3 days prior. The handwriting was neat but shaky. September 19th. Uneventful. K. Morrison. I flipped back through earlier entries. Almost all said uneventful. A few noted lights in various buildings. One entry from August read, "Shed door ajar at 11:47 post-meridium." Shed protocol followed. Brother Thomas acknowledged. Nothing more. I left the office and walked the corridors until I found my way to the courtyard. The space was larger than it had seemed from the outside, perhaps 80 yards on each side, paved with flat stones that had settled unevenly over time. A bronze statue of a saint, Saint Perpetua, I assumed, stood in the center facing the chapel. Flower beds lined the inner walls, mostly empty now except for a few late-season asters. The chapel's central door was open. I approached slowly. The interior was dark except for a handful of candles near the altar. Wooden pews ran in two sections divided by a center aisle. The ceiling arched high overhead, supported by dark beams. Behind the altar, a large stained glass window showed a figure in red holding a palm frond. "You must be our new night guard." I turned. An elderly man stood just outside the doorway. He wore the same gray robe I'd seen on Brother Thomas, but his was belted with a braided cord that had 3 knots. He was frail, perhaps 80, with a deeply lined face and pale blue eyes. "I'm the Abbot," he said. "You've read the procedures?" "Yes." "Do you have questions?" "A lot of them." He smiled faintly. "Ask one." "Why do I need to count steps?" "The courtyard's dimensions are fixed. If your step count changes, the dimensions have changed." This would be important information. How would dimensions change? That's a second question. Ask something else if you'd like, or save your questions for later. I chose my words carefully. "What am I actually guarding against?" "Disorder," he said. "This monastery has stood for 163 years. It stands because certain practices are observed. You are being paid to observe them, not to understand them, not to question them, but to observe them. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Good. You'll start tonight. Brother Thomas will be available on the radio throughout your shift. If something occurs that is not covered in the procedures, contact him immediately. Do not improvise. Do not attempt to solve problems on your own. Follow the procedures exactly as written. This is not negotiable. Understood?" "One more thing," the abbot said. "We maintain silence during your shift. The brothers are sleeping or in private prayer. If you encounter any of them, do not speak unless spoken to. Nod if you must acknowledge someone, but do not initiate conversation. The only exception is Brother Thomas on the radio." He turned and walked toward the administrative building, moving slowly but steadily. I watched him disappear through a doorway, then checked my watch. 8:20. I returned to my room, ate a protein bar from my supplies, and tried to settle my nerves. At 5 minutes before 9, I climbed to the security office, wound the watch again even though it hadn't been 12 hours, and counted the equipment aloud. 2 flashlights, 1 radio, 1 set of keys, 1 first aid kit, 1 logbook. 1 watch. 7 items. I opened the logbook to a fresh page and wrote the date. September 22nd. Below that, shift begins 9 post-meridium. At exactly 9 o'clock, I clipped the radio to my belt, pocketed both flashlights, and locked the security office behind me. The monastery's interior lights had been dimmed but not extinguished. I found my way to the courtyard entrance and stepped outside. The temperature had dropped. My breath misted faintly. Overhead, clouds obscured the stars, and the lake was invisible beyond the cliff edge. I turned right to begin the clockwise patrol and started counting steps. The courtyard stones were uneven enough that I had to watch my footing. I kept count silently, using my fingers to track groups of 10. The north wall with the chapel took me 104 steps. East wall, 87 steps. South wall, 109 steps. West wall. I stopped at 347 exactly, standing just outside the west dormitory entrance. I'd completed the circuit. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. 9:21. Next check was exterior doors at 9:45. I had time, so I walked slowly back toward the south entrance, taking in details I'd missed earlier. The flower beds were bordered with stones painted white. Small plaques marked certain areas. Brother William's Garden, 1987-2004. In memory of Brother Augustine. The statue of Saint Perpetua showed her holding what looked like a book in her left hand and reaching upward with her right. At 9:45, I began checking doors. The administrative building's 2 doors, locked. The east dormitory's 2 doors, locked. The chapel's side doors, locked. The chapel's central door, unlocked. I consulted the procedures in my head. If you find it unlocked before midnight, leave it unlocked. I left it unlocked and continued. West dormitory, locked. Maintenance shed, locked. Storage building, locked. 11 doors, all accounted for. I returned to the security office and made a note in the logbook. 9:45 post-meridium. All doors checked. Chapel central door unlocked before midnight. At 10:15, I was standing near the statue when I heard the footsteps. They came from the east dormitory, muffled but distinct. A steady rhythm. Step, 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 step. Walking from one end of a corridor to the other, I estimated. Then silence. 30 seconds or so. Then the footsteps returning. Step, 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 step. I stood completely still. The sound faded. The courtyard was silent again except for wind moving through the pines beyond the monastery walls. 10:45. I conducted another perimeter patrol, counted 347 steps, checked the logbook procedures. Nothing required until the 1 in the morning bathroom check. I sat in the security office and reviewed the procedures again, memorizing the exact wording. At 12:30, I checked the chapel's central door, still unlocked. I locked it with the brass key and pocketed the key ring. The night was settling into a rhythm, cold, dark, quiet. I walked patrols, checked doors, listened to the building settling and the wind against the stone walls. At one point, I thought I heard singing, faint, distant, possibly from the chapel, but it was difficult to separate from the wind. At exactly 1 in the morning, I approached the west dormitory's south entrance. The key turned smoothly. Inside, the corridor was lit by dim emergency fixtures. The second door on the left had a small placard, lavatory. I counted to 3, put my hand on the knob, opened the door. The bathroom was small, sink, toilet, mirror above the sink. I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and closed the door. I did not look in the mirror. I had followed the procedure. Back in the courtyard, I filled my lungs with cold air and felt my hands shaking slightly. I made myself walk another patrol, counting steps, letting the familiar action steady my nerves. At 2:17 in the morning, I saw the figure. It appeared at the north end of the courtyard near the chapel's northeast corner. Gray robe, head bowed, hands clasped at waist level. It moved slowly along the north wall, placing each foot carefully. I froze near the statue, flashlight off, watching. The figure reached the northwest corner, paused for a moment, then turned and walked slowly back the way it had come. At the northeast corner, it turned again and disappeared from view. I did not speak. I did not follow. I did not shine my light. I waited a full minute, then continued my patrol counterclockwise, this time to vary the pattern and give my mind something to do. 347 steps. At 3:30, I returned to the security office and counted the equipment aloud. 2 flashlights, 1 radio, 1 set of keys, 1 first aid kit, 1 logbook, 1 watch. 7 items, all present. I sat in the chair and let exhaustion wash over me. My sister was in a hospital bed 200 miles south. The surgery was scheduled for late October. I needed this job for 6 weeks, maybe 8. I could follow strange procedures for 8 weeks. I could count steps and avoid mirrors and ignore figures in gray robes. I could do this. At 4 in the morning, I repeated the bathroom check. Door count to 5, close. I saw my reflection for a fraction of a second before I closed the door, pale, tired, eyes too wide. And then the door was shut and I was walking back to the courtyard. At 4:45, I conducted the final patrol counterclockwise. 347 steps. At 6 in the morning, the sky was beginning to lighten over the lake. I returned the equipment to the security office, completed the logbook entry, September 22nd, 23rd. Uneventful, and walked back to my room. I slept until 2 in the afternoon. The next 3 nights followed the same pattern. I learned the rhythms, the footsteps at 10:30, the singing from the chapel around 1, the figure at the north wall sometime between 2 and 3. I saw lights in the west dormitory on Thursday night, second floor, third window from the south, and noted them in the logbook. On Friday, the maintenance shed's door was ajar when I checked it at 11:30. I stopped 10 yards away, radioed Brother Thomas on Channel 3, said, "Shed protocol," and waited. His voice came back immediately. "Acknowledged. Continue your patrol." On Saturday morning, Brother Thomas met me as I was leaving the security office. "You're doing well," he said. "No issues?" "No issues." "Good. The abbot would like you to take your days off as scheduled. Monday and Tuesday you're free to rest, walk the cliff path, use the kitchen during daylight hours. Be back in your room by 8 post-meridium on Tuesday. Wednesday you'll resume your regular shift." Understood. I spent Monday sleeping and walking the cliff path. The monastery sat on a narrow peninsula, perhaps half a mile long and 200 yards wide at its widest point. The path stayed 10 yards from the cliff edge, marked by white painted stones every 20 feet. Lake Superior stretched gray and endless to the north. Gulls wheeled overhead. I saw no other people. Tuesday I did laundry in a basement room near my quarters and read a paperback thriller I'd brought. The monastery was quiet during the day. I saw brothers occasionally, in the courtyard, in the corridors, but no one spoke to me. Wednesday night I began my shift as usual. Equipment count, first patrol, door checks. At 10:15 I heard the footsteps. At 1 in the morning I checked the bathroom. At 2:30 I saw the figure on the north wall. At 3:42 in the morning the radio crackled. "Night guard, this is Brother Thomas, acknowledge." I unclipped the radio. "This is Night guard, go ahead. We're implementing amendment protocols. Return to the security office immediately. Bring the logbook to the courtyard. The abbot will meet you there in 5 minutes." Acknowledged. I grabbed the logbook and walked quickly to the courtyard. The abbot was already standing near the statue, holding a paper lantern. Brother Thomas stood beside him. "There's been an incident," the abbot said. "Not here. At our sister monastery downstate. We're adding temporary protocols to your procedures. Brother Thomas will give you an updated list. Read it carefully. The additions take effect immediately." Brother Thomas handed me 2 sheets of paper stapled together. "These are amendments," he said. "They supplement the original procedures. Where they conflict, the amendments take precedence." I tilted the pages to catch the lantern light. Amendments to Night Security Procedures, St. Perpetua's Monastery, Amendment 1. Between midnight and 4 in the morning, lock yourself in the security office during the following times: 12:45 to 1:15 ante-meridium and 3:15 to 3:45 ante-meridium. Do not leave the office during these windows for any reason. Maintain radio silence during these windows unless you observe something that requires immediate reporting. Amendment 2. If you hear knocking on any door between 9 post-meridium and 6 ante-meridium, do not respond. Do not investigate the source of the knocking. If the knocking persists for more than 2 minutes, note the time and location in the logbook. Amendment 3. The courtyard's south gate, located in the center of the south wall, currently unused and locked. Must be verified locked at 10:30 post-meridiem and again at 4:30 ante-meridiem. Use the master key to check that the lock engages properly. Do not unlock the gate. Amendment 4. If you see more than one figure in a gray robe during a single shift, report this immediately via radio. Do not approach any figures. Move to the security office and wait for instructions. Amendment 5. The watch you carry must be wound at the start of your shift, at midnight, and at 3 ante-meridiem. Each time you wind it, count the turns of the crown. The count should be between 10 and 15 turns. If it requires more than 15 turns or fewer than 10 turns, report this via radio immediately. Amendment 6. During your patrols, if you notice that the statue of Saint Perpetua is facing a different direction than when you last observed it, stop your patrol immediately. Return to the security office and radio Brother Thomas. Do not approach the statue. Amendment 7. The cliff path is now off limits at all times, day and night, until further notice. Do not walk the cliff path. Do not look toward the cliff path from the courtyard. If you see anyone on the cliff path, report it immediately via radio, but do not continue to observe them. Amendment 8. Between 4:30 and 6 ante-meridiem, maintain visual contact with the courtyard from the security office window. If you see anything entering the courtyard during this time, lock the office door and remain inside until 6:15 ante-meridiem. Do not leave early even if your shift has technically ended. These amendments are in effect until we tell you otherwise, the abbot said. Probably several weeks. Do you have questions? I scanned the list again. Amendment 1 locks me in the office during times when I'm supposed to be checking the bathroom. The bathroom check is suspended while Amendment 1 is in effect. Don't check the bathroom during the windows specified in Amendment 1. What happened at the other monastery? That's not your concern. Follow the amendments. Follow the original procedures where they don't conflict. Report anything unusual. That's all we ask. They left me standing in the courtyard holding the pages. I returned to the security office, taped the amendments to the wall above the desk, and reviewed the new timing requirements. The lockdown windows meant I'd need to plan my patrols more carefully. I wound the watch, counting. 12 turns. At 12:45, I locked myself in the security office. I sat in the chair and listened to the building settling, the wind against the windows, the distant sound of water against the cliff base far below. At 1:15, I unlocked the door and resumed my patrol. The courtyard step count was 347. The statue faced the chapel, as it always had. The south gate was locked when I checked it at 10:30. At 3:15, I locked myself in the office again. I wound the watch 13 turns and waited until 3:45. Nothing unusual occurred. I finished the shift, noted amendments implemented in the logbook, and went to bed. The amendments became routine over the next week. I adapted my patrol schedule, avoided the cliff path even during my days off, checked the south gate twice per shift. The monastery settled into a colder, darker pattern as October arrived. Frost appeared on the courtyard stones in the mornings. The brothers wore heavier robes. On October 8th, a Thursday, I heard knocking. It started at 1:37 in the morning while I was conducting a patrol near the east dormitory. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the dormitory's north door. I stopped walking and listened. 3 more knocks. Then silence. I noted the time and location in the logbook. The knocking didn't resume. 2 nights later, more knocking. This time on the chapel's east door at 2:14 in the morning. 4 knocks, evenly spaced. I noted it and continued my patrol. On Monday the 11th, Brother Thomas stopped me during my day off while I was in the kitchen making coffee. "You've been reporting knocking," he said. "Yes, per Amendment 2. Have you opened any doors when you've heard knocking? No. Good, don't. Even if you recognize a voice, even if someone calls for help, don't open doors during your shift unless the procedures specifically require you to. Understood? There's a storm forecast for Wednesday night. Heavy rain, possible winds up to 50 miles per hour. We're going to give you an additional protocol list for severe weather. Come to the Abbot's office at 7 post-meridium on Wednesday. Don't be late. Wednesday arrived overcast and cold. By evening, rain was falling steadily and the wind was picking up. I met Brother Thomas and the Abbot in a wood-paneled office on the second floor of the administrative building. The Abbot handed me a single sheet of paper. "Emergency protocols," he said. "Use these only during severe weather or power outages. They override both the original procedures and the amendments." Emergency protocols. St. Perpetua's Monastery. Emergency Protocol 1. If electrical power fails, proceed immediately to the security office. Light the emergency lantern, stored in the bottom desk drawer. Do not use flashlights except when moving between buildings. Conserve batteries. Emergency Protocol 2. During power outages, remain in the security office unless you observe active danger to the buildings. Fire, structural damage, intruders. Monitor the radio continuously. Emergency Protocol 3. If you must leave the security office during a power outage, move along the south corridor only. Do not enter the courtyard. Do not use the north, east, or west corridors. Emergency Protocol 4. If you hear the chapel bell ringing during severe weather, count the number of rings. Report the count to Brother Thomas via radio. Do not investigate the chapel. Emergency Protocol 5. During severe weather, the south gate may appear to be unlocked even though you have verified it locked. If this occurs, do not attempt to lock it again. Note the time in the logbook and report via radio immediately. The storm should pass by morning, Brother Thomas said. Follow the emergency protocols if needed. Otherwise, maintain your regular procedures. At 9 o'clock that night, the power was still on, but the rain was hammering against the windows and the wind was making the building groan. I counted the equipment, wound the watch, and began my first patrol. The courtyard was slick with rain. I kept close to the walls, counting steps carefully to avoid losing track. Water poured from the chapel's gutters. The flower beds had become mud pools. 347 steps. At 10:30, I checked the south gate. Locked. At 12:45, I locked myself in the security office and waited. Rain lashed the window. The lights flickered twice but stayed on. At 1:23 in the morning, the power failed. The building went dark except for the faint glow of emergency exit signs. I found the lantern in the desk drawer, lit it with matches stored beside it, and set it on the desk. The radio was still functional. Battery-powered, I realized. I clipped it to my belt and sat in the chair, listening to the storm. Thunder rolled across the lake. Wind screamed past the window. At 1:41, the chapel bell began to ring. I counted. 7 rings, slow and deliberate, each separated by about 5 seconds. Then silence. I radioed Brother Thomas. Chapel bell rang 7 times. His response came after a 10-second delay. Acknowledged. Remain in the security office. Do not approach the chapel. Report any additional bells immediately. Acknowledged. The wind increased. I heard something heavy scraping across the courtyard stones, a bench maybe, or one of the flower bed borders being torn loose. The lantern flame guttered but stayed lit. At 2:36, I heard footsteps in the corridor outside the security office. They were close, perhaps 10 feet from the door. Slow, deliberate steps, boot heels on tile, coming closer. The footsteps stopped directly outside the door. Silence. I held my breath. The lantern cast wild shadows on the walls. The footsteps resumed, moving away down the corridor toward the courtyard entrance. I stayed in the chair. The emergency protocols said to remain in the office unless there was active danger. Footsteps in the corridor were not active danger. I was following the procedures. At 3:15, per the amendments, I was required to stay locked in the office anyway. The timing worked out. I wound the watch, 11 turns, and waited. The storm didn't let up. At 3:48, the lights came back on, flickering at first, then steady. I extinguished the lantern and returned it to the drawer. At 4:30, I checked the south gate. It appeared unlocked. I didn't touch it. I radioed Brother Thomas. South gate appears unlocked, not attempting to relock per emergency protocol 5. Acknowledged. Stay clear of the gate. Continue your shift. At 4:45, I conducted my final patrol. The courtyard was strewn with branches and debris. Water stood in pools on the uneven stones. I counted carefully, adjusting my stride to account for the obstacles. 351 steps. I stopped, counted again mentally. 351. I radioed Brother Thomas. Step count on final patrol is 351. 4 steps more than standard. A longer delay this time. Then, proceed to the security office. Complete your shift from there. Do not conduct additional patrols. At 6, ante-meridium. Verify that all equipment is present and then leave the office immediately. Do not remain in the building after 6:15 ante-meridium. Acknowledged. I returned to the office and sat in the chair until 6 o'clock. Dawn was breaking gray and cold over the lake. I counted the equipment aloud, 7 items, all present, completed the logbook entry, and left the office at exactly 6:02. Brother Thomas was waiting in the corridor. "Go to your room," he said. "Stay there until I come get you. Don't leave for any reason." I went to my room. I locked the door, closed the curtains, and lay on the bed fully clothed. I could hear people moving in the building above me, voices muffled by the floor, doors opening and closing. At 3 in the afternoon, someone knocked. "It's Brother Thomas." I unlocked the door. He looked exhausted. "The courtyard's dimensions have been corrected," he said. "You can resume your normal shift tonight. The south gate has been secured properly. Disregard emergency protocol 5 going forward." What does dimensions corrected mean? It means the problem has been addressed. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. Thank you for following the protocols precisely. He started to leave, then paused. "You've been here 3 weeks. How much longer do you need this job?" 5 more weeks, maybe 6. "You'll have it. The Abbot is pleased with your work. Just keep doing what you're doing." That night I resumed my normal shift. The courtyard had been cleared of debris. The step count was 347. The south gate was locked and felt solid when I checked it. Over the following week, the amendments remained in effect, but nothing unusual occurred. No knocking, no unexpected figures. The footsteps at 10:30 continued like clockwork. The bathroom checks happened at 1 and 4. The figure on the north wall appeared twice, walking slowly with head bowed. I fell into a rhythm. Sleep during the day, work at night, follow the procedures exactly. I called my sister once a week from my room. The surgery had been moved up to October 26th. The experimental treatment was expensive but showed promise. She sounded tired but hopeful. On October 19th, a Monday, my day off, I was walking near the administrative building when I saw a car in the parking area. A sedan, rental plates covered with road dust. I hadn't seen a vehicle other than the monastery's van in weeks. That evening, Brother Thomas found me in the kitchen. "We have a visitor," he said, "a researcher from the diocese. He'll be here for 3 days, observing our routines. He may ask you questions about your work. Answer honestly, but don't speculate about things outside your direct experience. Clear?" "Clear." "He'll be staying in the East Dormitory, 2nd floor, room 214. He's been instructed not to interfere with your patrols or leave his room during your shift. but people don't always follow instructions. If you see him during your shift, remind him politely that he should be in his quarters. Wednesday night, October 21st, I began my shift as usual. At 10:42, while I was standing near the statue, I saw a man in street clothes exit the east dormitory and walk toward the chapel. I approached him. "Excuse me." Night visitors are supposed to remain in their quarters. He was perhaps 40, with wire-rimmed glasses and a leather portfolio under one arm. "I'm Dr. Vance, diocese researcher. I have permission to observe. Brother Thomas told me you'd be staying in your room during my shift. I won't interfere with your work. I'm just observing the chapel exterior. The procedures say I should remind you to return to your quarters." He smiled slightly. "I've read your procedures. Interesting document. Very specific. Tell me, do you actually believe there's a reason for all those precise timings, or do you think it's just institutional hazing?" "I follow the procedures." "Of course you do. You're being paid well. But surely you've wondered why you're counting steps, avoiding mirrors, ignoring phantom footsteps. Please return to your room. In a moment, I'm curious about something." "Have you ever tested the procedures? Deliberately deviated to see what happens?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I was told not to." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Fair enough. I'll return to my room, but think about this. Procedures that can't be questioned can't be improved. Blind obedience isn't a virtue." He walked back toward the east dormitory. I continued my patrol, counting steps, feeling unsettled in a way I couldn't quite name. The next night, Thursday, I saw Dr. Vance again. This time at 1:47 in the morning, standing outside the chapel's central door. "You need to go back inside," I said. "The door's locked." I wanted to examine the chapel interior. The chapel is off limits between midnight and 3 in the morning. "Why?" "Those are the procedures." "But what's the actual reason? Is something dangerous inside? Are the brothers conducting rituals they don't want observed?" "I don't know. I just follow the procedures." He produced a small notebook and pen. "How many times have you seen the figure in the gray robe?" "I'm not discussing my work with you. Brother Thomas said you'd answer honestly. I'm trying to understand the patterns here. The monastery has a long history of, let's call them anomalous events. I'm documenting them. Your observations are valuable data. My observations are in the logbook. Ask Brother Thomas if you want to see it. I have. Very thorough. Uneventful appears quite often. But I notice you report lights in buildings, step count discrepancies, the condition of the south gate. What I don't see is any curiosity about what these things mean. They mean I need to report them, that's all. You're incurious to a remarkable degree, or very disciplined. Which is it?" I didn't answer. After a moment, he returned to the dormitory. Friday night, I didn't see him. Saturday night, his last night, I saw him at 2:33 in the morning, standing near the statue, watching the north wall of the courtyard. The figure in the gray robe was making its slow walk along the wall. I approached Dr. Vance. "You need to go inside." "I'm watching the figure. It's fascinating. Look at the way it moves. Perfectly smooth, no variation in stride length. Head at exactly the same angle throughout. Please go inside." "In a moment." "I want to see if—" He started walking toward the figure. I grabbed his arm. "Don't. I'm just observing. The procedures say don't approach the figure, don't speak to it, don't follow it, don't shine light on it. I'm not bound by your procedures. You're on these grounds during my shift. The Abbot's rules apply to everyone." He pulled his arm free but stopped walking. The figure reached the end of the wall, turned, and walked back. It disappeared around the corner of the chapel. Dr. Vance wrote in his notebook, "Observed duration, approximately 90 seconds. Direction, west to east, then return. No deviation from straight line path. No acknowledgement of observers." "Are you done?" For tonight. He went inside. I continued my patrol, trying to suppress the anger I felt. The man was treating the monastery like an experiment, the procedures like hypotheses to be tested. He didn't understand that some things weren't meant to be understood. They were meant to be followed. On Sunday morning, Dr. Vance's car was gone. That evening, Brother Thomas briefed me in the security office. The researcher has submitted his report. He made several recommendations. The abbot has decided to implement one of them. He handed me a new sheet. Amendment 9, effective immediately. Amendment 9. If you encounter any person on the monastery grounds during your shift who is not Brother Thomas or the abbot, do not engage in conversation beyond what is necessary to direct them to their quarters. Do not answer questions about the procedures, your observations, or the monastery's history. Report all encounters to Brother Thomas via radio as soon as practical. The researcher asked too many questions, Brother Thomas said. He undermined your focus. We can't have that. You're here to follow procedures, not to be interviewed. Understood. Your sister's surgery is in 5 days. You'll have that Wednesday off, I assume? I'd like to visit her Tuesday, stay overnight, come back Wednesday evening. Approved. Finish your shifts through Monday, take Tuesday and Wednesday off. Resume Thursday night. Thank you. The next 3 shifts were quiet. No visitors, no unexpected events. I counted steps, checked doors, avoided mirrors, observed the figure on the north wall. The amendments had become second nature. I knew the timing windows by heart. On Tuesday morning, I drove south to the hospital where my sister was being prepped for surgery. I stayed with her through Wednesday, sleeping in a chair in her room. The surgery went well. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. I drove back to the monastery Wednesday evening, arriving at 7. The sky was clear and cold, stars sharp overhead. I unpacked, ate dinner in the kitchen, and went to bed early. Thursday night, I resumed my shift. Equipment count, first patrol, door checks. The routine felt comfortable, almost meditative. 347 steps, 11 doors, 7 items of equipment. At 11:36, I heard knocking on the storage building's door. 5 knocks, evenly spaced. I noted the time and location in the logbook. The knocking stopped. At 1 in the morning, I checked the west dormitory bathroom. Door open, count to 5. Door closed. No mirror. At 2:41, I saw the figure on the north wall. Gray robe, head bowed, hands clasped. Walking slowly west to east, then back. At 3:30, I counted the equipment, 7 items. At 4, I checked the bathroom again. Door open, count to 5, door closed. At 4:30, I verified the south gate, locked. At 4:45, I began the final patrol counterclockwise. I reached the statue, turned west, counted steps along the west wall, turned south. Someone was standing near the south gate. I stopped. The figure wore a gray robe but stood perfectly still, facing the gate. Not the walking figure I'd seen dozens of times. This one was simply standing, motionless. Amendment 4. If you see more than one figure in a gray robe during a single shift, report this immediately via radio. I'd already seen one figure tonight. This was a second. I unclipped the radio. Brother Thomas, this is Night Guard. I'm observing a second robed figure tonight. Location, South Gate. Requesting instructions. Static. Then. Do not approach. Move to the security office immediately. Lock the door. I'm coming to you. I walked quickly along the east wall, entered the building through the south corridor, and locked myself in the security office. My heart was pounding. I sat in the chair and waited. 7 minutes later, Brother Thomas arrived. He was breathing hard as if he'd been running. The abbot was with him. The figure at the south gate, the abbot said. Describe it. Gray robe, standing still, facing the gate. Did it move? No. Did you see its face? No. It was too dark and I was about 40 yards away. Good, you did exactly right. He turned to Brother Thomas. Check the gate. I'll stay with him. Brother Thomas left. The abbot sat in the folding chair I'd pulled from the corner for visitors I'd never had. The figure you saw, he said, was not a brother. Do you understand? I understand you're telling me it wasn't a brother. We have security protocols because this monastery sits on an unusual site. The ground here has a long history. Not all of it is recorded in church documents. Some of it predates the church by centuries. The brothers who founded St. Perpetua's in 1862 knew this. They established procedures to maintain stability. Those procedures have been refined over time, but their purpose hasn't changed. What purpose? To keep the boundaries clear, to maintain the distinction between what belongs here and what doesn't. Your job is to observe those boundaries, to follow the procedures that preserve them. Nothing more. What happens if the boundaries break? They don't break if the procedures are followed correctly. That's why we pay attention to step counts and door checks and timing windows. These aren't arbitrary rules, they're methods of maintaining consistency. Brother Thomas returned. Gate is secure, no sign of forced entry, the lock is solid. The abbot stood. Finish your shift from here. Don't go back into the courtyard until dawn. Log this incident with as much detail as you can remember. We'll review it in the morning. They left. I wrote in the logbook for 20 minutes, describing the figure's location, posture, the exact time I'd seen it, the sequence of events leading to my radio call. At 6 in the morning, I completed the entry, October 29th, 30th. Second robed figure observed at South Gate at approximately 4:52 ante-meridium. Reported immediately. Shift completed from security office per instructions. I slept until 3 in the afternoon. When I woke, someone had slid a note under my door. Abbot requests your presence in his office at 5 post-meridium. I showered, dressed, and climbed to the second floor of the administrative building. The abbot's office door was open. He and Brother Thomas were studying a large map spread across a wooden table. Come in, the abbot said. Look at this. The map showed the monastery grounds in detail. The buildings, the courtyard, the cliff path, the peninsula's outline. Red marks indicated doors. Blue marks indicated certain windows. Green marks showed what I assumed were patrol checkpoints. This is the pattern you walk every night, the abbot said, tracing the courtyard perimeter with one finger. 347 steps at normal stride. Why that number? I don't know. Because it completes a circuit that intersects 8 specific thresholds at precise intervals. The chapel's northeast corner, the statue, the west dormitory entrance, the south gate, and 4 other points. These points form a boundary. Walking them in the correct sequence reinforces that boundary. I don't understand. You don't need to. But I want you to understand why precision matters. If you walk 350 steps, you've shifted the boundary. If you walk 340 steps, you've left a gap. 347 steps clockwise in the first patrol and counterclockwise in the last maintains the pattern. Brother Thomas pointed to the south gate. The figure you saw was testing the boundary, standing at the weakest point, seeing if it would hold. It held because you followed the procedures. You didn't approach. You reported. You withdrew to safety. Will it happen again? Possibly, but now you know what to do. Report multiple figures immediately. Don't approach. Don't attempt to identify them. Your job is to observe and report, not to confront. What if something comes through the gate? If the procedures are followed, nothing will. But we're adding 2 more amendments to account for increased activity. The abbot handed me a sheet of paper. Amendment 10. Between 4:30 and 6 ante-meridium, conduct patrols only along the interior corridors of the south building. Do not enter the courtyard during this window. Observe the courtyard from the security office window only. Amendment 11. If you see any figure attempting to open or climb over the south gate, report immediately via radio and then evacuate to your quarters. Lock your door and do not open it until Brother Thomas or the Abbot gives you an all-clear signal. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks. These amendments are permanent, the Abbot said. Not temporary like the earlier ones. We're adjusting our protocols based on what we've observed over the past month. Is the monastery in danger? The monastery is stable, but we're entering a more active season. November and December sometimes bring increased activity. We're preparing for that. I studied the amendments. Amendment 10 changes my final patrol pattern. Correct. You'll no longer conduct a courtyard perimeter patrol between 4:30 and 6. Interior corridors only. You can observe the courtyard from the window, but you don't walk it. What about the step count? No longer required for the final patrol. The boundary is strongest in the hours before dawn. We don't need you walking it at that time. I folded the amendments and pocketed them. My sister's surgery was successful. I'll need this job through the end of November, maybe into early December, depending on her recovery. You'll have it as long as you need it. You've proven yourself reliable. That's valuable to us. That night I implemented the new amendments. Interior corridor patrol from 4:30 to 6, watching the courtyard through the window. I saw nothing unusual. The south gate remained closed and locked. The courtyard was empty except for shadows and the statue. November arrived with cold rain and early darkness. The lake turned gray and rough. Ice began to form along the shoreline. The brothers wore heavy wool robes and moved between buildings quickly, heads down against the wind. My shifts continued. I adapted to the new patterns, learned the interior corridor routes, timed my patrols to avoid the lockdown windows. I heard knocking occasionally on various doors, always at different times, never following a clear pattern. I noted each instance in the logbook. On November 7th, a Saturday, I saw lights in the chapel at 2:33 in the morning. Not candles. Electric lights, bright and steady, illuminating the stained glass windows from inside. I noted it in the logbook. At 6, I reported it to Brother Thomas. Did you investigate? No. The procedures say note the location and time. Don't attempt to turn lights off. Good. The lights were intentional. We had an emergency vigil. I should have informed you, but events moved quickly. Don't be concerned if you see chapel lights occasionally during your shift. As long as you don't hear the bell or see figures attempting to enter, there's no issue. On November 12th, my sister called. She was home from the hospital starting physical therapy. The doctors were pleased with her progress. She thanked me for making the job work, for getting the money she'd needed. I told her I was doing fine. The work was easy once you learned the patterns. On November 15th, the knocking changed. It started at midnight exactly, not the slow, deliberate knocks I'd heard before. This was rapid, insistent. Bang, 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 fists on wood. Coming from the west dormitory's south door. I stayed 20 yards away and counted. 37 knocks in rapid succession. Then silence. I radioed Brother Thomas. Knocking on west dormitory south door, 37 knocks, rapid pace, different pattern than previous incidents. Acknowledged. Do not approach the door. Continue your standard patrol pattern. The knocking resumed at 12:23. Same door. This time I counted 42 knocks. At 12:45, I locked myself in the security office per Amendment 1. The knocking started again, but now it sounded like it was coming from multiple locations: the west dormitory, the east dormitory, the storage building. Overlapping rhythms, different speeds. It continued until 1:15. When I emerged from the office, the courtyard was silent. I conducted a perimeter check. All doors appeared secure, no signs of damage. At 3:30, I counted the equipment. 7 items. At 4, I heard the knocking again. This time on the security office door. Bang, bang, bang. I sat in the chair and didn't respond. Bang, 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 bang. I checked that the door was locked. It was. The knocking continued for 3 minutes, then stopped. At 6 in the morning, I completed the logbook entry and left the office. Brother Thomas was waiting in the corridor. "We heard the knocking," he said. "The brothers were awake. This is escalating. What do I do differently?" "Nothing. Keep following the procedures. Don't respond to knocking regardless of how intense it becomes. Don't open any doors except the ones you're required to check per the procedures. We're going to add one more amendment, effective immediately." He handed me a handwritten note, Amendment 12. "If knocking occurs at the security office door, do not respond in any way. Do not open the door, do not call out, do not acknowledge the knocking. Remain in the office with the door locked until the knocking stops. If knocking continues for more than 10 minutes, radio Brother Thomas, but maintain your position in the locked office." "Is the office safe?" "As long as the door stays locked and you don't respond, yes. The boundary holds at the threshold. They can knock, but they can't enter." "They?" Brother Thomas met my eyes. "You don't need details. You need to follow procedures. Can you do that?" "Yes." The knocking became a regular occurrence. Multiple locations, various intensities, sometimes lasting for minutes at a stretch. I logged every instance. I never responded. I never opened a door that wasn't part of the required procedures. On November 20th, I saw 3 figures in gray robes. They appeared at 1:47 in the morning, standing in a row along the north wall of the courtyard. Motionless, facing the statue. I radioed Brother Thomas immediately. 3 robed figures, north wall, not moving. "Evacuate to your quarters. Lock your door. Wait for the all-clear signal." I left the security office, walked quickly down the south corridor to the stairs, descended to the basement level, entered my room, and locked the door. I sat on the bed and waited. 26 minutes later, 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks. I opened the door. Brother Thomas and the abbot were standing in the corridor. "The figures are gone," the abbot said. "The boundary held. We've reinforced certain thresholds. You can resume your shift." "What were they?" "Observers, testing, probing for weaknesses. They found none." "Because of the procedures?" "Because you followed the procedures without deviation. The pattern holds only if each component is executed correctly. You've been executing correctly." I returned to the security office and completed the shift. No additional figures appeared. The knocking had stopped. The courtyard was silent except for wind and distant water. Over the next week, activity decreased. The knocking became occasional rather than constant. I saw the usual walking figure on the north wall twice, but no additional figures. The step count remained 347. All equipment stayed accounted for. On November 27th, Brother Thomas briefed me in my room during my day off. "The active period is winding down," he said. "We expect December to be quieter. You've handled this extremely well. The abbot wants you to know that you're welcome to stay beyond your sister's needs if you choose. We'd like to have you long-term. I'll think about it. Take your time, but understand that what you do here matters. Every shift you complete correctly maintains something important. You might not see the full picture, but you're part of it." My sister called that evening. She was doing well enough to return to part-time work. The treatment costs were covered. She'd be okay. I told her I'd stay through December and then reassess. The job wasn't what I'd expected, but I'd adapted. I understood the rhythms. I knew the procedures. December arrived with heavy snow and bitter cold. The lake froze along the shoreline. The monastery's stone walls collected ice. The brothers moved between buildings using a system of ropes strung across the courtyard to help navigate in whiteout conditions. My shifts became quieter. No knocking, no additional figures. The standard phenomena continued. Footsteps at 10:30, singing from the chapel, the walking figure on the north wall, but nothing escalated. On December 15th, I completed my shift and found an envelope on my desk in my room. Inside, a check for 6 weeks' pay as a completion bonus and a note from the Abbot. Your work has been exemplary. If you choose to continue, we'll make the position permanent with increased compensation. If you choose to leave, you leave with our gratitude and the knowledge that you've helped maintain something rare and important. Let us know your decision by year's end. I walked the cliff path that afternoon, staying inside the white-painted boundary stones. The lake stretched gray and frozen to the horizon. Gulls called overhead. The monastery sat solid and quiet behind me, stone walls dark against the snow. I thought about my sister recovering and safe. I thought about the procedures, the step counts, the doors and windows and timing windows. I thought about figures in gray robes and knocking that came from nowhere and footsteps that walked the same corridor every night at 10:30. I thought about boundaries and what it meant to maintain them. On December 23rd, I met with the Abbot in his office. "I'll stay through January," I said. "Then I'll reassess. That's all we ask, 1 month at a time. Follow the procedures, maintain the pattern. The rest will take care of itself." That night, I conducted my shift as I had for 3 months. Equipment count, first patrol, door checks, bathroom checks, equipment inventory. 347 steps, 11 doors, 7 items. The monastery settled into winter silence around me. The brothers slept. The lake froze solid. The procedures held. At 6 in the morning, I completed the logbook entry. December 23rd, 24th, uneventful. I returned the equipment to the security office, wound the watch one final time that shift, and walked back to my room through corridors I knew by heart now, counting steps out of habit, listening for footsteps I'd learned to expect, following patterns I'd proven could hold against whatever tested them. Outside, snow was falling. Inside, the monastery stood. I would be here tomorrow night and the night after. I would count steps and check doors and avoid mirrors and ignore figures that walked alone in the dark. I would maintain the boundary. It was enough. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. At the top I wrote, "Night Security Procedures, St. Perpetua's Monastery. Updated December 2024. Below that, I began to write the procedures as I now knew them, with all amendments and emergency protocols integrated into a single clean list. Whoever came after me would have what I'd had: clear instructions, precise timings, rules that worked if you followed them exactly. 1. Begin your shift at exactly 9 o'clock post-meridium. The pen moved across the paper, steady and certain. The words formed a pattern. The pattern held. Outside my window, the snow continued to fall.